Welcome to Schein Chats today. My name is Andrea Gallimore, and I'm a product manager for Henry Schein One. I'm joined today with Dr. Leslie Pasco. She's a general dentist, a practice management consultant, and a public speaker. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Pasco.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we've all heard the phrase, patient communication is key in our practices today. So I want to discuss with you how these phrases prove to help the dental practices improve their efficiencies and get their patients in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, we just talked about this at one of the seminar that I just gave, and I know this is an event, and there's all kinds of dental technology and equipment and tools, and dentists get really excited about this stuff. They don't get so excited about communication. And communication really is the most important tool that you have to have in your office. It's the essential element to your practice success. And there's lots of different tools that can help you communicate, technology, scanners and cameras and texting and emailing and newsletters and all that stuff. But if you yourself can't communicate, you're the most important tool. If you yourself can't communicate, then we're in trouble.
Very much so. And like you said, it's not just about all the tools that we're using, it's about the personal communication too. And that personal communication does stem over into our technology, because the way we communicate internally to each other, to our team members or to our patients in a practice, is also the way we convey it to the patients in our technology, because we communicate to them, I feel like, in a way that is more personable when we have that same personal communication internally in our offices.
Absolutely. You can see it reflect in your texting and in your emails. And if you embody that within your practice, it's going to come through in the words that you speak or type or text or email as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So why do you think it's so important internally to have that good communication, but to have a technology system to actually reach out to the patients and be in touch with them and make sure they understand what's going on in the practice? Not just about showing up for an appointment, but more about what the practice is doing for them and helping them with their dental health.
Well, of course, that's a really good question, because most people don't realize, but people with teeth live longer than people without teeth. And the more teeth you have, the longer you're going to live, statistically. So if you're communicating with your patients on a regular basis, you're adding years to their life. You're taking away from their demise. So why not communicate often? Because you're actually helping somebody live longer. Most people don't realize that. So technology, if it can help you communicate on a weekly basis with your patients, let them know why they should come in, let them know that they're overdue to come in, it's really critical. It's important, because you're helping them make good choices and live a longer and better and happier life ultimately.
That's so true. And I always tell practices when I'm working with them, because they're always like, we're just so busy. We can't think about these extra things and how to get that done to communicate with their patients. And now, I just talked to them about some of the wonderful things is getting those tools in your hand. And one of the things I love about Henry Schein One and the solutions that we have, they're there to help practices have tools in hand to communicate with your patients. I like to call it set it and forget it type campaigns, where you can set a routine to reach out to that patient base and remind them why it's important to keep up with their dental health and how important that is to their overall health, as you said, because they do live longer when they're taking care of their teeth. It stems right there to everything.
Well, and then so too, there's so much distraction in the world today. Statistically, they say that, we're listening about 80% of the time. But I think these days it's even more than that, because we're constantly on our phones watching videos, as silly as some of them are. We're immersed in communication. So the more that you can get out there and communicate and relieve your patients from those distractions and bring them to an understanding of something that's really important and that will really help them, I think it's critical. It's really what we need to do and what we're obligated to do as healthcare professionals. And I got what you're saying about the time. Like, just add another thing to my plate. Or I think, it's like anything. Maybe it's a little scary at first, but you got to dive in, because it's going to make things easier and be more helpful later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where, team members in the practice and the doctor wants them to do that. And they're like, I just don't know when I'm going to find the time for these kind of things. But having tools in place to help them just make life simpler for them in the office, so then they can be efficient in working on that treatment in the office and communicating while the patient's in front of them, and not worrying about electronically getting communications out to their patients about appointments or about their health and everything. So it just makes a huge difference in how they interact internally with their patients, internally with the team, and then I call it external because it's got all the electronic communications going out to them.
Well, let's face it. I mean, I'm a dentist because, I help people. And I can't help people if they're not in my chair. So anything that I can use to help fill my chair and keep it full, to me, is an essential part of what I do for a living. So anything that will assist me in that. And honestly, there's only so much one person, a human being, can do. And this is where technology comes into play. You've got to be able to do more.
Definitely.
Yeah. Years ago, we used to call patients and ask them to come in. And I ran a study. It took 500 phone calls to get 2 people scheduled.
Wow.
That's a lot of phone calls. That's a lot of wasted time.
Definitely.
So, now we can send out 500 texts in 3 seconds. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
And the tools at hand are so intuitive nowadays. Like you said, I mean, the time spent doing phone calls versus the time spent in the chair, it just doesn't match up at the time. And all the technology we have now to text those patients in a mass, really even hit the patients that we know need to get into our practices and get them in the chair, remind them of treatment that we've already treatment planned. We're so busy, like you were talking about, all of us individually as patients are busy people, and you talk about needing treatment, you leave and say, I'm gonna call back and schedule. They never do. I've learned that technology to send to them and say, don't forget, you have that treatment and it's so important to your dental health. Click here and let's schedule an appointment. I mean, that is just a round robin. Get them in your chair so you can do your magic and heal their mouth.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're here for. That's what we should continue to do.
I know, it's definitely great. Well, let's talk about the trust that communicating with your patients, both internally in the office and through the communications we're sending out to them, how that builds trust between you, the doctor, and the patient, and even the team members in the practice, because they're an extension of you. And the more the patient can trust the entire team, the more likely they're going to come in and get their treatment taken care of, which is just profitability for the practice.
Yeah, well, I think, trust is a big word. And, as a dentist or an oral physician, so to speak, we have to work to build that trust. And using technology is a way to do that. And there's so much technology in the world today that is expected. And it's almost building a distrusting relationship not to use technology, because then you got to wonder, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Fast food restaurants use technology. Supermarkets use technology. It's all over. So why wouldn't it be in the dental office?
Right.
Yeah. Patients want to see it.
They want to see it. They do, and they live by it. We live by it. We know that. We live by that technology in our hand every moment of the day, looking at communications on there and getting that kind of information from the entire dental team. Just builds that. Hey, my doctor takes thought into my oral health care, and I need to get in there and see my doctor. And, those that aren't doing that, they're passing by those providers. They're passing by those teams and saying, you know what, this one's really communicating out. Maybe I see their, social media pages and just talking about oral health and not just, having little fun things on there, which is good to have, but, having real conversations to build a healthcare provider trust relationship.
Absolutely. There's a lot of distractions out there on social media, and that's all cute, and no offense to anyone who does that. It's not my style. I want my patients to understand that oral health is overall health, and that's why they need to come in and see us. And I'm only one person, and I can only tell so many people, but if I can use technology to spread the word, I certainly will.
Well, that is so great. Well, this was just a great conversation, Dr. Pascal, and I really just appreciate you being here. And, we're just becoming more and more flooded with communications from all these areas. So it's important for our practices to understand how important building that relationship internally in the office, but also through your external communications you're sending out is to the success of their practice. So
Absolutely.
we want to thank you for being here with us today on our Schein Chats and taking the time to spend with us and educate us. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.